What's up, everyone? KJ3 here as we are now entering the big dog days of summer. We're coming up to July. These are my predictions, KJ3's predictions for Florida's football season, the 2018-2019. Dan Mullen's first as head coach with the Florida Gators. In week 1, we have at-home night game SEC Network at 7:30. Charleston Southern, Division I FCS. And this team also was Dan Mullen's first team on the schedule last year when he was still at Mississippi State, and he waxed them 49-0. So it's hard for me to see any way that Charleston Southern is going to even somehow keep this close. So I'm saying Florida over 20 in this game. Easy W week 1. And week number 2 brings us Kentucky. I mean, how many years in a row have we just completely dominated Kentucky? But last year, oh my gosh, I think it gave a lot of Gator fans heart attacks. If it wasn't for Tyree Cleveland and blown coverage, we would have lost last year. Plain and simple. So we got lucky, fortunate last year, but we have them in the swamp again this year. People to be on the lookout for. Benny Snell, running back for Kentucky. That guy had 18 touchdowns last year, UK rushing record. And also, man, you got to be on the lookout for linebacker Josh Allen. He's going to be an upcoming senior. He led the team last year with 9.5 tackles for loss and 7 sacks. So those are the 2 returning players for Kentucky to watch out for. But once again, I think Florida is going to continue that winning streak and make Kentucky our little kid like we always do in the SEC East. Bring us to 2-0. I think it'll be a hard-fought game, but I think the Gators will win by more than 10. Now, week 3 finally brings us some interesting story talk to talk about as we face Colorado State once again in the swamp. This game was agreed upon whenever we bought out Jim McElwain's contract at Colorado State 3 seasons ago in late 2014, early 2015. We are still paying Colorado State as a part of that buyout, let alone McElwain's buyout last year. We are paying them $2 million just to come and play this season in this game. And we've been paying them $500,000 every year until the total equals $3 million. That's supposed to run out in 2020. Anyways, I don't see there's a chance in heck Colorado State's going to be able to keep up with us, especially after we get our first real test against Kentucky with Tennessee looming the week after, and that'll be a road game. So this is our last of 3 games to start out the season in the swamp. And honestly, our defense and offense should be clicking to this point where we get ready to go and play 2 very, very tough road games in a row in the SEC. Not just the East, but we also play one in the West the week after that too. So this will be a tune-up game before Tennessee. Probably won't be that much of a high-scoring game. We'll probably be looking ahead to Tennessee. And honestly, this will just be a work out the kinks type game. Get your game plan ready for the next 2 games on the road. So I think Florida will easily take care of business here, but it won't be a big, flashy, high-scoring game. This will be hard fought. We'll probably put up around 30, 40 points. I mean, shoot, if we can put up 30, 40 points and that be a disappointment, then talk about standards increasing. So anyways, I see this as an easy W. Florida by at least a touchdown. Now, week 4 brings us our old SEC rival in Tennessee. The team that went winless in SEC competition last year, and Florida will be the first SEC team they face this year. But, man, this Tennessee team has a brutal schedule. I mean, this schedule is not even fair. They start out week 1 in a neutral site game against Will Grier and West Virginia, and Will Grier is going to be a leading Heisman candidate going into this season. I mean, as much as we know about Will Grier and the wounds that still hurt and run deep about the Will Grier decision that McElwain made, let's back to Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee, they play us, and then they play Georgia the next week on the road, then have a bye, then play Alabama at home, then play Auburn on the road, then play South Carolina on the road. I mean, this Tennessee team they have the hardest schedule in the SEC East. So will they get one on the Gators? I don't think so, despite the fact that the last time we were in Knoxville, they broke our win streak over them. But we are still dominating Tennessee, especially with the laughing stock of a coaching search that they had this past offseason and finally getting Jeremy Pruitt. I just don't think Jeremy Pruitt's the right guy to fit at UT to try to get them back on the top. For some reason, Tennessee fans still think that they're national title contenders, despite the fact that we've made them our little kid every single year except for one in the last 13, 14 years. So yeah, look for UF to continue the rivalry dominance in this. I'll give Florida at least 8 points on this one. Gators will win, but we may be looking ahead to Mississippi State just a little too much, considering this will be a big rivalry game, and Tennessee is going to have a lot to prove because they were winless last year. But I say Florida by over 8. And now we're on to week 5, which I consider to be the toughest game on our schedule this year. Yes, I know we also have Georgia, LSU, and FSU on our schedule, but circle Mississippi State, everybody, because if there is a town in America that hates the University of Florida the most, right now it has to be Starkville, Mississippi. Just look what we've done to them in the last 3 years, okay? We took their defense coordinator in Jeff Collins. Collins stayed with us and then went on to take a head coaching job in the ACC at Boston College, I believe. And then we go and we get their head coach, our head coach now, Dan Mullen, after we already got their athletic director as well in Scott Strickland. And not to mention, Dan Mullen brought pretty much his whole entire staff from Mississippi State as well. Yes, that leaves Mississippi State without a staff that's as good as they had last year. Yes, they had to scramble to find coaches for that, but they still have Nick Fitzgerald, and that guy is a really good quarterback. And like I said, the atmosphere in Starkville is going to be insane when the Gators come to town next year. I have that as a for sure loss for us. Why? Because we are coming off of a rivalry game in Neyland Stadium, headed straight to Starkville after that, with the mention that we just took their coach and pretty much every single part of their football program in the last 3 years. I mean, we've taken their heart, their soul, their arms, and their legs. I mean, be on the lookout for Mississippi State, okay? They're going to be pissed. And in the SEC, we have seen the perfect storm happen before when it comes to upsets. I mean, just look at what Bo Wallace did to Alabama a couple years ago. I mean, it doesn't matter how good you are. It only matters how good you play on that certain day. And right now, it's looking that Mississippi State has a lot more to play for, and Florida will have a lot more to lose going into that game. So that is my upset alert. My upset alert. I think Mississippi State will get us by less than a touchdown. But, like I said, still wait to see what we do in fall practice. So right now, through week 5, I have our Gators 4-1. Week 6 brings us our annual rivalry against LSU, and once again, this one is still at home. This is our last of our 2 back-to-back home games against LSU in a row. And LSU last year, I mean, that was a weird game, wasn't it? Anyways, LSU still with quarterback questions. They don't know who their quarterback's going to be, but, I mean, this will be week 6, so we'll have some idea of who their QB is going to be. They finally got rid of Matt Canada, so let's see if they finally turned around on offense. LSU, I mean, they have the toughest schedule in the West, as both their teams are Florida and Georgia that they pick up in the rotation this year. So much like Tennessee with the toughest schedule in the East, LSU toughest schedule in the West, and Georgia will be following our game against LSU. They will be playing Georgia in Baton Rouge the week after they play Florida in the Swamp, so they may be looking a little bit ahead towards the Georgia game. But anyways, I see this one as being a very tough fought game, toss up. It all comes down to how well the quarterbacks have played through week 1 through 5. LSU starts off the season in Dallas, in Jerryville, against Miami. So that one game in week 1 will tell us a lot about where this LSU team is going to be, and they also are going to be facing Auburn before they face us this year as well. So LSU, big toss-up. It could go either way. It all depends on how well the teams are looking going into the year. But I'm going to say we're going to get this one. I'm going to say that this one can be one that's a loss. This one can be one that's a win. But I'm going to say that Dan Mullen, I have more faith in Dan Mullen and the talent and the offense that he's going to put together and the talent on the defensive side rather than LSU and their lackadaisical head coach and their overpaid assistant coaches. I mean, I give the advantage to Dan Mullen and staff despite Ed Orgeron being there for one more year. So I'd say Florida is going to get this probably in between the margin of 3 and 7. But like I said, this is a toss-up. So check back to me week 6 and my prediction before this game, and I'll have a much better idea of where it's going to be then. But for now, I'm saying Gators beat LSU, move us to 5-1. Week 7 brings us Vanderbilt on the road in Nashville. We'll probably get an early start like we always do when we play in Nashville because of the central time zone difference. So this one will probably be a noon kickoff game. Body start 11 a.m. kickoff, so we'll probably be a little sluggish in this game. But we beat Vanderbilt by 2 touchdowns last year, and last year's team, this year's team's just going to be better, okay? So, I mean, hats off to Vanderbilt. You gave us a challenge with Derek Mason. You know, you got a decent squad. You got a good, tough defense, but I just think that we're going to get this unless we come out just playing like we're asleep. Because like I said, we'll probably get the noon kickoff game like we always do when we play in Nashville. And we never really play well in Nashville. Go back, look at the seasons, and we never really score a ton of points when we play Vanderbilt on the road. We always kick their butts when we play them in the swamp, but it's just something about that central time zone difference that makes us just play a little bit sluggish. So I say Florida's going to get this one. Be a little bit of a nail biter, but Florida will pull away in the second half, increasing our win-loss schedule to 6-1. After Vanderbilt brings us our bye week before the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. Yes, that's right. I still call it that. I will always call it that, despite what the media says. Florida versus Georgia. This game, I once again will most likely be in Jacksonville as I try to attend every Florida-Georgia game in Jacksonville with my buddy who's a Georgia fan that you guys saw on my channel last year. I won that bet. We may have lost the game, but I won that $20. Y'all know what I'm talking about. If you've not, go ahead. Check the link right up here. End the video. At least I got some laughs in there. We don't know the severity of Jake Fromm's injury on his left hand yet. So if Justin Fields is out there, this Georgia team is very, very green. They are very young. Kirby Smart, yes, inherited a boatload of talent. Great players. I mean, Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, you can't ask for better running backs to inherit whenever you're a head coach. But that monster Georgia recruiting class that they just hauled in, number 1 in the nation. It was number 1 in the nation for a reason. Let's see what Kirby Smart does as finally being the head coach of his own program and having a bunch of 5-star recruits coming in like he always did at Alabama. So this one, honestly, because Florida got embarrassed so badly last year, 49-7, and we only scored in the last couple of minutes to preserve our scoring streak. We got embarrassed last year. So, I mean, there's going to be a massive chip on every single one of these Gators' shoulders. And while Dan Mullen was at UF, he loved kicking Georgia's butt every year. I mean, I think we only lost to him once. I think 2007 was the only time Georgia beat us when Dan Mullen was OC. So I don't see this as an easy win for Georgia. I don't see this as a for sure loss for Florida. It's a rivalry game. And if 2006 UCLA versus USC taught us anything, Gators, is rivalry games. Anything can happen. Anything can happen, all right? Anything can happen. Right now, I'm thinking this may be a loss, but once again, check back at me during our bye week because I'll have a much better picture. We'll know if Fromm's playing. We'll know how Georgia's doing. We'll know if Kirby Smart is coaching these guys like at the Nick Saban level, you know, where one 5-star drops out, replaced with another one, he plays even better. So, I mean, let's see what Kirby Smart does. Not sold so much yet on what Kirby Smart can do with young talent. That's what I said. This one could be a toss-up. I'm leaning towards Georgia winning, but like I said, rivalry games, anything can happen. We may have 2 losses. We may have 1. Go ahead, check back with me on that. For now, just because Georgia is the defending runner-ups and we are the team that just got the coach and is on the rise, I'm going to put this as a loss for us right now. Like I said, check back to me would come bye week in October. But right now, I'll have our Gators at 6-2 after the bye week, L after the bye week, but should be the last loss on our schedule. All right, week 10, we are now in November, and it's Missouri, the team that's just the thorn in our side, really. I mean, it's not like Missouri's great every year, but oh my gosh, did they kick our butts a lot. Like, we got embarrassed last year, straight up embarrassed in Columbia last year. So we are in the swamp this year, coming off of a game against Georgia. Once again, we'll see if we win that game in Georgia and see if we carry momentum back with us to the swamp. But long layoff from the swamp, be 3 weeks away at least. So we will be ready. Most likely be our homecoming game, as Missouri usually is. It's usually Missouri or Vanderbilt is our homecoming game. Since we play Missouri late this year, I'm going to say this is our homecoming game. Gators got to get up for this one. Find it deep within. Wash off that Georgia game. You know, if you lost it, if you won it, congratulations. Carry that momentum in. But I do not see us losing to Missouri for the second year in a row. I don't. It may be a close game. Probably going to be a close game. But I see Florida getting away with the W on this one. 7-2. Week 11 brings us Will Muschamp. Will Muschamp. Yes, South Carolina. We have to play him every year, and he is in Spurrier's old coaching gig. So, I mean, at least it gives us that little bit to carry about, you know. South Carolina, ever since Spurrier took it over there, it's like, oh, you're our old coach type of a team. So, I mean, hey, still our old coach that we got to go face. As we all know, I mean, Gator fans, we had 4 years of Muschamp. We know guy can coach defense. Guy can recruit defensive players. Guy's got a stingy defense, but no offense. But last year, you know, Will Muschamp actually did start to find a quarterback. And that's one thing that scares me and honestly frustrates me because if Will Muschamp would have picked Jacoby Brissett instead of just Jeff Driscoll, I mean, where would we be? Where would we be? I mean, honestly, we hate McElwain more than we hate Muschamp. We can at least respect Muschamp for what he did for us. But we want a W against Will. We want a W against Muschamp, and we lost our first meeting against him since he became a rival coach. So this one's in the swamp, not up in South Carolina this year. I see us coming away with a W, but this is also a toss-up game only because Will Muschamp's just got a stingy defense. And if he actually gets an offense, the South Carolina's going to be good. All right. So this is once again a toss-up. Check back to me with more mid-season to see where both programs are lying. But this one right now I'm putting as a W. Now that brings us closing out our conference schedule at 6-2 is my prediction. We may make the SEC championship game, but that is not my prediction. Honestly, I think a 3-loss season would be great for us, which brings us into Idaho. Week 12, this game is rescheduled from our Week 1 matchup all the way back in 2014. Yes, 4 years ago when that game got canceled due to lightning. I remember this because I was still living in Colorado at the time, and I was so pissed off because I was waiting at a sports bar for about 6 hours, seeing if this game be played. So yes, this is our rescheduled game from 2014, right in the slot that we always usually put a weaker team before Florida State on the road. And this one, I mean, I don't even have to say it. It's Idaho. Easy W for Florida to bring us all the way up to 9-2, heading into Tallahassee. Week 13, rivalry week. Tallahassee, Florida State. Free Shoes U, as we love to call them. Thank you, head ball coach, for that nickname. I just love that nickname. It's perfect. Anyways, FSU, just like us, had a terrible season last year. Honestly, I'm not convinced Willie Taggart's the right guy at Florida State. Me personally, I think he'll be fired in 3 years. But that's up for debate. Going into Tallahassee, the way that we lost against Florida State last year, and the way that we've honestly been Florida State's little kid for the last couple of years. I mean, last time we won was 2012, and that was because we had an amazing defense. And, you know, that was before Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston, the guy who right now is looking like he may be out of a job in the NFL. This was before he was a starting quarterback at Florida State, was the last time we beat Florida State. So we, as a fan base, are fed up with losing to Free Shoes U. So I'm going to say it. This is once again a toss-up game. All depends on how we're looking throughout the year, where our injuries are at, where our quarterback plays at, where our offensive line's been, how well our amazing running backs are doing, how well our receivers are doing, how well our defense adjusted to the 3-4. I mean, there's so many things. This late in the year, you have to look at the season as a whole. You can't really predict it from right now. If I were to do the prediction, I'd say we're going to have the emotional edge going into the game. I think we have a better led program by a better high-quality coach. So I'm going to give the edge in coaching. Both first-year head coaching here, but I'm going to give the edge to Dan and staff and say Florida beats Florida State, bringing us to 10-2. Depending on how the SEC turns out, most likely we will miss out on being in the SEC championship game, as Georgia will probably go there again. But if we do beat, the teams that I have said we beat, and if Georgia does have an off year, then I can see us going to Atlanta. My expectations are not Atlanta this year. I just want to point that out. I think a 3-loss season will be a very good season for a year one head coach in Dan Mullen, considering on how bad last year was. So I am predicting 3-loss. That's why I said a couple of those wins that I called are toss-ups, because I think we will lose to Mississippi State, may lose to Georgia, may lose to LSU, may lose to South Carolina, may lose to FSU. So if we lose 2 of those toss-ups I just said, that puts us at still 3 losses with Mississippi State being it. I just think that's a guaranteed L this year. I mean, so those are my predictions for this 2018-2019 regular season. I think we will fall short getting to Atlanta. If we get to Atlanta, be thrilled. Be thrilled, Gator fans. Do not expect conference championship in year one and a playoff contention, playoff talk with Dan Mullen. I need everyone to pump the brakes. Just pump the brakes. Honestly, I'm not trying to quote anyone from Philly here, but trust the process. Trust this culture Dan Mullen is bringing, because this culture and what he said about changing expectations and buying into the program, that goes for us fans too. That's not just the players. That goes for us fans, all right? Be patient. A 3-loss year will be a good year for us this year, all right? So don't have too high of expectations. Yes, he coached Tebow and Percy and all of them, won 2 rings. But you know what? Urban Meyer won his ring in his second year, and his first year he had 4 losses. So pump the brakes, Gator Nation, all right? It's still July. Recruiting signing day, the early period signing day, is still 5 months away, with National Signing Day being over 7 months away. So enough of this bashing on recruiting and all this nonsense, all right? Pump the brakes, Gator Nation. Dan's the man. Trust him. This guy is the best eye for quarterbacks in college football. So if he chooses Felipe Franks, go believe in Felipe Franks. If he chooses Kyle Trask, believe in Kyle Trask. Chooses Emory Jones, believe in Emory Jones. If he chooses Kadarius Toney, trust that Kadarius Toney's the right guy, all right? Dan's the man when it comes to finding quarterbacks. There's no better resume on any college coach, except maybe Mike D'Antoni in Michigan State, when it comes to quality quarterbacks finding. I mean, Alex Smith, Dak Prescott, Cam Newton, all still starters in the NFL, and those are people Dan Mullen recruited and coached. Yes, Cam Newton left Florida, but Dan still recruited him, all right? Don't forget that. Not to mention the great Tim Tebow. So, Dan's the man, everyone. Calm down, relax. He's got this. You just got to trust, believe, have faith. Open up your Gator heart to Dan Mullen and everyone, and just be a little patient. Year one's going to be a little bumpy, but this will be the worst year that we have with Mullen. Will be year one because everything is going up, all right? Anyways, this has been KJ3 signing off with your Florida football 2018-2019 regular season predictions here in July. Check back to me in August, September, October, November, as I most likely be doing game breakdowns on the week of the games as we get to know a little bit more information about where all these teams are at this season. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe right up here and keep track of all my other videos here. Florida football recruiting, NBA free agency, and honestly, any other big sports news that happens. I will try to bring the latest to you and try to do as much research as possible. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comment section below. If you agree on my predictions this year, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. If you don't, go ahead and give me a thumbs down. But just let me know. I love constructive criticism. So any comments in the comment section, I won't take it personally, okay? Love you, YouTube. Love you, everyone. Signing off. Go Gators. Wake me up when September begins.